Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we will be discussing the Millwood Knights, a group that appear in the Dark Souls 3 DLC Ashes of Ariandel. This will be an investigation into their culture, their society, and their tragic downfall. I will not be talking about the bosses of Ashes of Ariandel, so don't worry about being spoiled on that specific topic. Let's jump in. The world of Ariandel is a destination for the lost, the forlorn, and the unwanted. For those who have lost their homes, Ariandel will provide refuge. One such group that found themselves inside the slowly rotting painted world of Ariandel were the Millwood Knights. Orders of knights are quite commonplace in the world of Dark Souls, but a Millwood Knight is no ordinary warrior. He does not fight for the glory of a kingdom or a god. Rather, the Millwood Knights worship the earth, and their weapons are forged with the might of the rocks and trees of their home, the fabled Millwood Forest. It may be natural for some of us to assume that the Norse warriors of Scandinavia, with their horned helms and large battle axes, inspired the design of the Millwood Knights, but I believe this may not be entirely true. The Millwood Knights and their belief system bear striking resemblances to Slavic mythology, most notably that of the World Tree, an enormous oak that perforates the earth's crust and connects the heavens, the mortal world, and the underworld together. Of course, it would be naive to say that this concept of the World Tree is exclusive to Slavic culture. It appears in many different belief systems, even Norse mythology, in which it is referred to as Yggdrasil. I don't claim to be an expert in these mythologies, but the appearance of the Millwood Knights and their reverence of the ethereal oak allow us to peer deeper into the nature-focused religion of this group. The Quakestone Hammer, one of the strongest weapons of the Millwood Knights, has a description that reads, "A stone hammer wielded by the Millwood Knights, with a head of naturally formed stone." The Knights of Millwood would fight hand in hand with the earth itself, and this weapon, among the oldest in Millwood, is symbolic of that relationship. This helps us begin to understand the depth of the bond that the Millwood Knights have to Mother Nature. Notice how the stone is not chiseled or carved into a more effective or dangerous shape, but is left naturally formed, believing that any work a blacksmith could do on the stone would be inferior to the work of nature. Something that is curious is that the earth fights its enemies through the Millwood Knights just as much as the Millwood Knights fight their enemies using the earth. The weapon arts of both the Quakestone Hammer and the Earthseeker use the strength of the earth to summon shockwaves and tremors. Interestingly, earthquakes have cultural significance both in Norse and Japanese religions. In Nordic folklore, the mischievous god Loki caused an earthquake when he would struggle against his restraints in the underworld, causing the earth and Yggdrasil to shake as a result. In Japanese culture, similarly, Namazu, a giant catfish located below the earth, causes earthquakes when he would struggle against Kashima, his deific captor. Even though the Millwood Knights were primarily guided by their bond with the ethereal oak, there is more that we can glean regarding their belief system. The following comes from the description of the Earthseeker. This large twin-bladed axe forged with bronze is a ceremonial weapon normally used in sacred rites. Millwood is a land of primitive earth worship where chieftain knights served as high priests. This weapon introduces us to a few concepts. Firstly, the Millwood Knights favoured bronze weapons, and that they were also used in sacred rites. We'll also learn later on that bronze was used in their armour sets as well. It's difficult to ascertain as to what these sacred rites really were, though the usage of a weapon implies that some kind of violence was required. It is also interesting to note that chieftains also served as high priests, which is not surprising since their battle tactics often revolved around their religious beliefs. In Norse mythology, someone who was both a chieftain and a priest simultaneously was referred to as a Gothi. Something I noticed during this investigation is that the Great Swamp Pyromancers also use bronze quite extensively. I direct you to the description of the Pyromancer set, which reads, "Attire of Pyromancers of the Great Swamp, comprised of bronze ornamentation and animal pelt. In the Great Swamp, bronze was used ritualistically to ward off evil spirits and keep darkness at bay." We can see here that bronze was used as a way to ward off the dark, which is a very interesting concept when we consider three more elements. They all have to do with named Great Swamp Pyromancers. Firstly, we have Cornyx's arm wraps, which have a description that reads, "The bronze ornamentation serves to ward off evil spirits." We can also see that Cornyx wears a bronze ornament around his neck. Secondly, we should look at a small part of Laurentius's dialogue from Dark Souls, who states,
"A pyromancer must be in tune with nature herself. My home, the Great Swamp, is an abundant store of nature. You will understand one day. It only takes time."
Lastly, we have Livid Pyromancer Dunnel, an invader that wears the same garb as Cornyx and Cuculus, who fights you in Ariandel. I don't actually have any footage of this fight, so I apologize for that, but I'm sure you can find some out in the interwebs. I thought all of this was worth mentioning, as it does show a connection between the Great Swamp Pyromancers, the Millwood Knights, and their mutual worship of nature and their usage of bronze. If you are still interested in the Great Swamp, I have a full video dedicated to it that I will link in the description. Now that we have a multifaceted understanding of the society of the Millwood Knights, we can move on to why they appear in Ariandel and what happened to them. As I stated earlier, the Millwood Knights are not native to Ariandel. Additionally, they may not have even travelled to the painted world of Ariandel of their own free will. The following comes from the description of the Millwood Greatbow. Greatbow crafted with black oak and wielded by Millwood Knights. Only specialised great arrows can be fired from this bow. It is said that the Millwood Knights used these to face their sworn enemy, the Abyss Dragon. Obviously, the most interesting element of this description is the fact that the Millwood Knights had a nemesis in the form of the Abyss Dragon. I can bet that you and many other people will jump to the conclusion that this is Calamite, and therefore the Millwood Forest is Oolacile / Darkwood Garden / Royal Wood / Farron Swamp, but I want you to hold off on that for now. There is a possibility that the Millwood Forest is actually located in another painted world. I will now explain. The following contains some spoilers for some NPC encounters in Ashes of Ariandel, so I will put a timestamp when I stop talking about them. Spoiler mode on. As we learn from the conversations with the Painter and Frida, there has never been one painted world, but countless painted worlds. They are temporary universes that can be created using powerful souls or other entities by individuals like the Painter, who is able to literally paint a world into existence. Since these worlds are by nature artificial, they are not sustainable, and after a time will rot away and collapse. It's most likely that the Painter herself triggers the collapse of the paintings, and that is why she has been locked away by Frida. The Painter wants to see fire so that this world can be cleansed and another can be created. While once the painted world of Ariandel may have been a refuge for lost souls like the Corvians, it has since become a rotting husk of its former self. Frida wants to see this painted world live to its end rather than start it anew, which fits with the Londor / hollowing mode of thinking. Okay, holy shit, we're getting way off topic. Okay, spoiler mode off. The description of the Millwood armor set reads, "Armor worn by knights of Millwood. The charbronze breastplate and the thick black cape are adorned with the symbol of the ethereal oak. When the fabled Millwood Forest was discovered, it was a vacant ruin. The only thing left was the ethereal oak stood rotting. No corpses were discovered, yet their belongings lay neatly on the ground." As we can see, the ethereal oak began to rot. Trees filled with the Ariandel rot can be seen in several places, as rotted trees are pushed over to create gangplanks. I believe that when the Millwood Forest painting began to collapse, they left and were guided to Ariandel after the terrible loss of their home. I believe that they were guided and did not stumble into the painting because of what is stated in the captain's ashes. It reads, "Umbral ash of the captain of the Millwood Knights. Long ago, when the Millwood Knights lost the forest they called home, they began a journey so long that even thoughts of their sworn enemy washed away, replaced by a vision of a cold and brittle wood. The memory of their home was replaced with a vision of a cold and brittle world, aka Ariandel. Who placed the vision in their heads? Possibly the Painter, though it's hard to say. My point is that it would have taken a being of extreme power to make the Millwood Knights leave their holiest place of worship. The image of the ethereal oak on their shields is said to be faded, which is essentially a metaphor for the memory of their long-lost home. My conclusion is that the Painter took pity on this group who were going to lose everything they held dear, and instead guided them to Ariandel, which would become their new home. Obviously, there's quite a bit of speculation involved with this theory, but since Ariandel seems to attract those who've experienced deep loss and shun those who haven't, I believe the theory is at least worth investigating. And so we close the chapter on yet another forlorn group of knights. They were not the first, and I very much doubt that they will be the last. If you enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like and share it with your friends who enjoy Dark Souls content. There will probably be more Ashes of Ariandel content coming out soon, so be sure to subscribe. Until next time.